Hello everyone, it's Julia with Senior Susie Stamps, and today we're working on template 4. In starting through the process of doing these templates, I designed, everything on paper looks great, but this panel just didn't work well at all. So I have modified it to where this panel stays put together, and that's what we're going to work with today. So let me show you. We have layer 3, layer 7, and layer 12, a flag accent, and then this little almost square panel. Let me show you some cards that it will make. This, of course, is a classic A2 size where all the layers are A2 size layers, and so all of your borders are even, and it uses layer 7 and layer 12. And here's another one. Also uses layer 12 and the large layer number 3. And you'll see you have a nice wide border around the outside of that. This one I turned the flag and cut the flag points on this angle here for that one. And then we have this card, front, and it uses layer 7 and the panel turned with the long way going up and down. And then here's the fourth one. Hang on. It uses I have cut 2 sheets of coordinating paper, so it makes 4 cards, and this is the 4th card, and it uses the 4th layer 3 and the 4th panel and then the 4th little flag accent there. So those are the 4 card sketches that go with template number 4. And as always, there's a free printable of this along with a QR code that brings you back to this video in the description box below, and it takes you to Canva. Now my understanding is you don't have to have a subscription to Canva to go and print these, so you feel free to do that and enjoy them until the book comes out, and then if you want to purchase the book, you're welcome to do that too. Let's look at some cards that I made with these layouts. I had fun making these. Let me see if I can pull the sketch and the corresponding card. No, that's not it. Oh, here it is. Here's the corresponding card that goes with that sketch. And you can see I've turned this going the other way. And I have backed this layer with a little smaller brown layer. I made these flowers, and if you'll stay toward the end of the video, we're going to make some of these flowers because I want you to see how to do that. Now this strip was part of the cutoff. It had the hole in it. This paper was, and I don't remember what paper that was. I've already put it away, and I apologize for that. But it had the little hanging hole in it, so I just thought, well, rather than throw it out, I'm going to utilize it in a card. So there's that one. And then here's this one. You'll notice that I just took a piece of brown scrap, and I have some, I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's see if we can get a little more light. Oops. See if I can get a little more light on it. I just made some little elements here with some punches, circle punches. And then I punched within a circle and double layered them up just for a little extra interest on that card. And I think this makes a very nice card for a gentleman, perhaps in your family that you want to send a thinking of you card to. You'll notice this layer doesn't have the liner, but this layer does. Simple sentiment, and you're good to go. So there was that one. And then there was this one. And again, I layered up underneath this one. There's 3 little punched elements right here. My little flag, I turned the other way on this one. Rather than cutting off the long side, I cut off the short side to make the points on my little flag. And I rounded the corners of this panel. This panel has a layer up underneath of it. This was also a scrap, and I used my decal edge trimmer to trim the sides off of this just for a little more interest. And then I attached one of my flowers. And then this is the last one, and it's oriented this way. I did put a liner up underneath this sheet, and of course that one. It makes a very simple, straightforward card, but because it's embellished with something interesting, it becomes a very special card. So let's talk about these embellishments now that I made to go with these cards, because I hope you can see this little flower right here. That's kind of what I was working off of when I was making these. And it uses a very, very old punch. In fact, I think this is probably the very first punch that I ever bought. I've had it for who knows how many years. And I don't use it often, but it's a very worthy punch to have in your stash. They're easily available on eBay or Etsy or wherever you buy used things. And when I'm buying something used, if I ran across this punch used, I would caution myself about it because it has a lot of scratches on the front, which means it's probably been pretty well used, and likely the cut points maybe are not quite as sharp as they perhaps once were. Look for one that has little wear on the outside if you can find one. A lot of people have punches in their stash that they rarely use, and it shows on the outside of the casing. So that's just a little word to the wise. Now, in order to make these little flowers, I also used a second punch, and this is an EK punch, and I used this image right here on that. So let's look at this in two different ways. And of course the first one would be just a flat little flower. And there's absolutely, I don't have this glued up, sorry. There's absolutely nothing wrong with using a flat little flower. In fact, you can make a very nice card using some purchased die cut and a flat card, and then some kind of a little background. I mean, a flat floral. Say that fast 3 times. If you elevate this up on a little piece of foam, it adds just a little bit of dimension to it. If you do a little shading around the outside, perhaps it adds just a little bit more dimension to it. But these are very roadworthy elements to have in your stash, but I just wanted something that was elevated up a little bit more. So this is what I did. I took that punched piece and sprayed it a couple of times, and we'll just use this one. I have a little spray bottle here, and I sprayed it a couple of times on each side to make sure that the entire side was wet. And then I gave it just a couple of seconds, and then I made a little paper wad out of it, right like that. And then very carefully, I pull my paper wad back apart, being careful that I don't tear my petals, and I don't want to straighten them out too awfully much, but I do want them to be a workable flower when I'm through, and I want to unfold as much as I can. Now you'll see this one, for example, is a little bit flat compared with the rest of them, so I'm just going to take my tweezers and put a little more element in that will add a little interest when it's all said and done here. And then I will take this and lay it aside for 10 or 15 hours until it's completely dry. Now this one I did earlier this morning in preparation for this video, and it's been a couple of hours and it's still damp, which means you can still move this and have it dry in a little different shape here in the center if I wanted to. And one thing that I might want to do with that is to take my little rounded thing here. I'm sorry, I forgot what these things are called. It's crazy when you get a little older, isn't it? Okay, and I might want to do something like that just to add a little more texture to this flower. The other thing that I did, when I cut these two out of this piece of paper that I had these two sides here that I really didn't have anything to do with except put them in my white scrap bin. And I thought, well, it might kind of be nice to do some little half flowers. And so that's what I did with these two. And ultimately what I will do then is to glue those onto the back of this flower, and it will give a second petal tier. And see, this is still wet, so I can kind of pull that apart just a little bit more. And then we can do something along the lines of these and glue these other two petals, these other two half flowers, onto the back of this one. Now let's look at the center, and I'll show you what I did with that. Because I also texturized that one, but I used a different process. So let me show you here what I did. These petals are not deep enough to really work with, so I've just taken and cut maybe 1/4 of an inch shy down in there. Not all the way in. See, this punch actually has a little daisy-like, and I've done this technique with this punch, but what happens is the petals tear, and I didn't want to do that today. So I took my little scissors and just nipped down in there like this. And it doesn't take very long. And if you're sitting there watching TV or something, this is a good thing to do when the commercials come on. And then I take my pointed tweezers. These are available on Amazon. They're dirt cheap. And I will try to leave a link to something similar. I've had these for too long to be able to give you the link of the actual pair that I have, but there's a gazillion of them out there these days. So I just take my tweezers and put it up in the middle of that petal and twist. I put my finger on top and bottom so that it doesn't rip, and then I twist it enough to get some interesting texture going on each one of these petals. And it doesn't matter that I'm twisting it all the same way. That's just the way my hands work, and it comes out just fine that way. So now you can see this already has a lot more interest in it. And then I'm going to go back and use my blending brush to catch that and put a little bit more texture against my hand in the middle. And if you want to get all complicated, you could get your little foam flower shaper out and your flower working balls and all that stuff. But this works really just fine for what I'm doing. And then on this center, I have taken, I think I threw the piece out, but I just took my little circle punch here and punched out three little circles, and I glued them together, and then I put my little dark center on top of that. So this is actually 4 layers in the center of this little flower. And that's how these flowers are made. I'll glue this right down in there when it dries. I'm sorry, it's not dry yet, but I needed to go ahead and make this video this morning for us. Personal life has kind of gotten hectic, as well as the life of the channel, so I'm having to kind of put videos in where I have the chance. But you can see what a nice little flower that's going to be when it dries up. I'll wait for it to dry completely before I glue it. And then I am going to glue these onto the back. And I will probably take the working end of this little brush and put just a little bit of additional ink on the outside of this flower. I'll show it to you over on the Facebook page later on this week. But at any rate, these are the sketches that go with template number 4, and I hope you'll go and print it for yourself. And I guess I should put the sketches down first. There's 4 of them, and it makes much more interesting cards if you use 2 sheets of coordinating paper. And then these are the cards that go with those. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video and it's been helpful to you. And I'll talk to you again soon. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.